Howdy, partners. You're listening to Conversations with Jacob, hosted by my good friend, Jacob Waller. Make sure to check out the podcast where podcasts are available and check out the video version on YouTube. You can follow us on social media. Facebook is Conversations with Jacob. Twitter is at CWJ Podcast. And you can visit our website, conversationswithjacobpodcast.weebly.com. Hey, you got a show idea? Maybe a guest suggestion? Email us at conversationswithjacob@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Jacob Waller.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Jacob, and today is episode number 48. And we're just a few away from episode 50. We got a good episode kind of lined up for you today because we're talking Elvis. But before I get to our guest today, which I ain't going to go through the podcast plugs because you've heard it from my good friend, Mr. Jake Thorne, on the intro. But I do want to plug a podcast that I've been listening to for a while. It's called Two Chairs, No Waiting. It's an Andy Griffin podcast for fans hosted by Adam Newsom. You can find it, twochairsnowaiting.com. Also on YouTube. And joining me today is the Spy Guy from YouTube. He does all kinds of videos from Elvis and to digging up his own yard, apparently, from what I've seen in some of his videos. So, Spy Guy, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jacob. Great to see you, my friend.
Oh, yeah. So, for people who don't know who you are, can you give us a little background?
Yeah, I'm just an Elvis fan that started making Elvis videos, Elvis history videos, and I do a lot of subjects now. You know, in the beginning, I kind of focused on Elvis specifically, but I do James Dean, a wide variety of things, especially old school stars that are kind of iconic, things that I'm interested in. And my formula is kind of going back. If I could find a photograph that happened somewhere or a story that happened somewhere, I try to go back physically to that place where the story happened at and tell the story and kind of bring it all back to life. And it's just, I really don't understand why I'm compelled to tell stories and compelled to go to places, but it's just something about reading a story or hearing a story or seeing a photograph and going there that just kind of brings it all back to life for me. And it's just fun.
Now, and when did you decide to make a YouTube channel?
Well, I own a hot tub company. That's why I'm called the Spa Guy. And I've had that hot tub company for a long, long, long time. I started that in 2005. So around 2009, I believe it was, as part of my marketing for selling hot tubs, I started putting hot tub videos, and I needed a place I put them on my website, but I needed a place to host the videos. So I used YouTube as a place to put a video, and then I would put a link in on my website. And then I started I thought, well, people would be interested in maybe seeing what went into moving hot tubs or repairing a hot tub. So I started filming myself repairing hot tubs. I started filming myself doing really odd hot tub moves. I even went into doing hot tub repos, if you can imagine that. I have 6 hot tub repo videos, but I just did different things hot tub related. And then from 2009 till 2016-ish, I had gotten about 3,500 subscribers.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, I want to do something to I loved on YouTube, Adam the Woo. I watched Adam.
Oh, yeah.
And I liked the way Adam told stories. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to go out and do kind of what Adam did. And so that's what I set out to do. I used a little bit of his formula, a little bit of stuff that was me, just a little bit from all these different things that I thought were interesting, and started making videos about other subjects. An example would be a lot of history things that I just thought were interesting. Like here, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and we had things like there's a cave that Timothy de Montbriand, the first white settler that came to Nashville, lived in, and I found the cave. It was a tourist attraction in the 30s, but it was actually hidden and grown up with trees. And I went down a cliff and went into the cave, and only to find out there was a set of steps on the other side. I didn't have to go down the cliff to get in there. I could have just walked down the steps, but I didn't know until I went through the cave. But just stuff like that, and I would put it on the channel, and I was just trying different things that were interesting to me, different subjects, and nothing really caught on until my daughter got married and her husband's in medical school, and they moved to Memphis. And so prior to that, I'd been a tourist going to Memphis to see Elvis stuff or whatever we were there for. When she moved there, my wife and I would go often visiting them. He was in medical school, so he was busy. They would go shopping. I would be there with nothing to do. So I always had good cameras, drones, because I was doing that kind of stuff, doing my hot tub videos. I flew drones and did all these different things that had really good camera equipment to make hot tub related videos. And one weekend, I thought, I'm going to go to Graceland. I wonder what's past it. I'd never driven past there's a Days Inn on the corner on Elvis Presley Boulevard. I don't think I'd ever really went much further than that down Elvis Presley Boulevard. So I went over there. I wasn't going to go to the house. I just wanted to look around, no pressure on myself to go to the house and stuff like that, to just kind of look. What was it like when Elvis lived there? What was this neighborhood like? So I drove past it and went down to the mall, Southland Mall down there. And I'm circling and looking at stuff, and I'm driving behind Graceland and looking at all the houses back there. And I knew Vernon's house was on Dolan Street, which is just to the right of Graceland. And I saw the house, and I remember pulling up and just kind of looking at it and driving on past it. And then I stopped and I thought, you know what? I bet a lot of people don't know that house is there. So I pulled over and I got my drone out and I flew the drone and I got my camera and I made a video about it, about the house being there, and showed the drone footage and stuff. And that next week I put it on my YouTube channel and I got 30,000 views the first month on my video. And I went, okay. So maybe there's an audience for this. Maybe I'm on to something. So then I made another video, and then another one, and then another one, and another one. And I don't know how many there are now. I lost count at 600. But I know on the channel, there's almost 1,500 videos on the channel, and 600 or 700 of those videos are Elvis related.
All right. Now, how I was talking to a good friend of mine today, and she brought up this question. When you go to these sites that are no longer there, how do you find out where they was at before?
That's a great question. So there's several different ways that you can do it. The most useful thing is historic aerials, is what it's called. That's the name of the website. And you can actually log into historic aerials. You could put an address in, and it will show you aerials from the 50s. And in a lot of cases, it'll show you 50s. It'll do like 55, 56, 59, 61, 64, 67, 71, 72, and it'll go all the way up to current day. And so you can go back and it has these tools, and you don't have to pay for it exactly. But if you don't pay for the aerials, it'll say historic aerials on top of the pictures. So when you're researching, I'll just kind of look around that overlay in there. But when I'm using historic aerials in videos, I will buy the photograph. So what you can do is choose an area, and you can say, I want this area like around Graceland. I've purchased Graceland from 55 on. I have basically every year that they did them. I've got probably a mile square, high resolution, looking down on Graceland, where you can go and zoom in and look at the different stuff. And what's interesting is the resolution on a lot of the photographs from the 50s are way better than the resolution in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And you would think that it would have been the other way, but the 50s photographs, a lot of them are really, really good. Sadly, the 50s photographs are not everything. So it'll be a highly populated area will have some good photographs. But some of the other areas, there are no historic aerials. And of course, now you could do the same thing with Google. You know, you can look down. So what we'll do is look at, if I'm researching a story that I haven't physically been to yet, I'll go look at the aerials. I'll look at modern day. And the historic aerials actually can go modern day all the way back. And they have a tool. They have several different tools, but one of them I really like is you can overlay, for instance, a aerial from 55 on top and put an aerial from 2023 on top of it, and then have a flashlight tool where you could go on it and actually look through wherever the flashlight shines. You could see from this layer to that layer. So you can actually pull off and see where something used to be and see where things are around it. And I found that thing to be accurate within inches, not feet, inches.
Oh.
And so something that we used that for recently was Trey and I went to Los Angeles and drove the James Dean route that he took the day he had the car accident and died. So he left Los Angeles. He picked his mechanic up, and we left where he picked the mechanic up and drove out to where he died. And when you go to where he died at that intersection, a couple of different things that struck me about this is, in my mind, I've seen the photos. You probably, I don't know if you're a James Dean fan, but you've seen the photos.
Yeah.
And so when you look at those photos, I just thought, this is a remote area. There's going to be very little traffic out here. We're going to go, and it's going to be out in the middle of nowhere. Jacob, I'm surprised that we survived being there. There was so many cars and trucks and motorhomes and tractor trailers, and they were driving so fast that we almost couldn't get our shots. We would have to step out in the road and try to get a shot and jump in real quick. I mean, I've never seen the amount of traffic that was there, and it was so loud. That's the other thing, is cars nowadays are really loud. And so when we're trying to film, I'm listening for what's around me, the ambient noise. And there's a lot of times I have to film things a couple of times because the vehicle's driving or accelerating real fast or whatever, and they mess your sound up. But anyway, I told you all that to tell you this. They have a memorial there where this happened at, on a fence line, where fans have put things for James and all this kind of stuff. And there's a memorial there. So we wanted to figure out if where the people are putting the memorial stuff is where they believe the photo of the car up against the fence, up against the telephone pole is. It's actually about 20 feet to the right. It's on that same fence line. The fence is in exactly the same spot it was in 1954 when that, or yeah, that I think I'm going from memory, but I'm sure 54 is right. In 1954 when James died, but the fence is exactly in the same spot, but where his car would have been is about 20 feet to the right of where if you go there, just know 20 feet to the right of where that stuff is where the car was actually resting, about 20 feet, 20, 25.
Oh, wow.
But we were able to figure that out with these historic aerials. Yeah.
Now, when did you become interested in Elvis?
That's a great question. I had I'm going to say it was the 5th grade. I had, it would have been 1976. And a friend from school, a guy named Troy Robinson. And I thought Troy was rich, by the way. And compared to us, he was rich. His father owned a jewelry store, Robinson Jewelers, which is in Greenville, North Carolina. They just recently retired and closed. His brother Mike actually ran it after his father passed away. But Troy invited me to his house, and I can still remember walking into Troy's house, walking in his bedroom. And when I walked through the door, over on the right-hand side was a stack of records standing up side by side by side by side. And it was about, from my memory, about 2 feet wide. And when I saw it, I said, well, what's that? He said, that's my Elvis records. I said, what do you mean? And I knew who Elvis was, but I'd never seen that many Elvis records, you know. So he walked over and picked one out and started playing. He said, "Let me let you listen to some." And he played Aloha from Hawaii, the one that you open like that.
Yeah.
He put it on his turntable and he played it for me. And we were sitting there listening to that. And somehow in the conversation that day, I ended up taking home, I paid him $1 for a cassette version of Aloha from Hawaii and took it home. And back then, the cassette player was about this big, and you stuck the cassette and pushed it down like that. And I laid on that thing in my bed and listened to it in my bed in the speaker on the tape player, on the cassette player. And just, you know, when you're a kid, especially if you're kind of poor, there's not a lot to do. So I listened to this and him bantering back and forth with the band and all the things that he was doing in the Aloha, you know, the satellite show. And I just thought, who is this? You know, I knew who Elvis was, but I knew Hound Dog Elvis. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. That's the Elvis I knew, you know, as a kid. And so I just thought, who is this person? You know, what is this? And so I started reading books, and Troy loaned me things, and I started really delving into who this person was and found out he had the Memphis Mafia and he had all these girls and he had a mansion. And, you know, who is this guy? He shoots TVs, you know, he carries guns, he drives cool cars. You know, who is this person? So I started really researching him. Sadly, he died the very next year. I would have been about in 77 when he died. I'd have been 12 years old. And so sadly, he died when I was 12. And I learned about him or started getting into it when I was 11. And but Troy Robinson's who turned me on to that, you know, to the idea of it. Sadly, Troy passed away. He died very young. He died at 52. But Troy was a lifelong friend of mine and a lifelong Elvis fan friend as well, up until his passing. And he owned a jewelry store. So he always had the coolest jewelry. I bought a watch from him, a Mickey Mouse watch, a Mickey Mouse gold watch. And he always had a lot of really cool stuff and was a great guy. He always had really long hair, looked kind of like an Indian. And just a good person. And he's the reason that I'm an Elvis fan.
How about that? Now, do you got a favorite Elvis song or a movie?
Well, Trilogy would probably be my favorite song or one of my favorite. I mean, it's hard to pick, man. There's so many really good ones. And on the movies, you know, I like a lot of the different ones for a lot of different reasons. One of my favorites would, of course, been I like Loving You. I like GI Blues. I like Viva Las Vegas. And when I was a teenager, now you got to consider back in the day, for people that are not as old as me, back in the day in the 70s and 80s, in the 70s specifically, you couldn't just go watch an Elvis movie. That wasn't a thing. So the way I watched them was in my town or in my vicinity where I lived at, they had a guy, his name was Will C, is what he went by on the TV, and he had Will C's Red Eye Cinema. And on Will C's Red Eye Cinema, every Friday night he would do he would do 3 movies of a theme. Like one time it would be military, so it would be Toro 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 and the Sands of Iwo Jima. One weekend it would be monster movies, so it would be The Bride of Frankenstein and Dracula and those kinds of things. One weekend it would be Elvis movies. So it was Girls, Girls, Girls was one of them. GI Blues would be one that I would have watched like that. This would have been late 70s. Another one would have been Blue Hawaii would have been a popular one. But he would do that. It would come around again every probably 2 months. And when it came around again, it would be different movies. But those movies I fell in love with because those are the first time I saw those movies. I saw Girls, 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 Viva Las Vegas, Blue Hawaii, Paradise Hawaiian style, all those long before I ever saw Love Me Tender and Jailhouse Rock, and Kid Galahad would have been another one, which, by the way, Trey and I just went and filmed all the Kid Galahad stuff in Idlewild, California.
Wow.
And a lot of the stuff that is in that movie is still in Idlewild, and I mean a lot of it. And so we've got some really cool stuff coming out where we filmed all that. It's just outside of Palm Springs, up high in the mountains.
Now, you've been about everywhere, I guess, to where Elvis has been. Is there a place that you would like to go that you haven't been to yet?
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
I've not done any of the Hawaii stuff yet. But I have done, Elvis went to Paris. I've been to Paris and filmed all the Elvis stuff. He lived in Germany. I've been all over Germany. I've been all over the Netherlands where the Colonel was born at. And much of the stuff in the United States I've been to, not all of it, but a lot of it. All of the LA stuff I've pretty much done. And so I've had a lot of luck going places, but Hawaii is high on the list for sure.
Do you got a favorite spot that you've been to?
Well, yeah, there's so many. I really enjoyed Germany. I got to stay in the bedroom. He lived at the Hotel Grunewald in Bad Nauheim, Germany, for about 4 months. And I got to stay in the room that he stayed in, and it still looks just like it did, believe it or not, in 1958 when he was there. And the hotel still looks very much like it did. And so that would be one place that that I would definitely plan on going back to. And it was just fun because it wasn't just seeing Elvis stuff. I was going to Germany. I had, when I think of Germany, just being transparent, I thought that there was going to be I thought it was going to be I thought I was going to be afraid, just being honest. I thought when I got to the border of Germany, there was going to be people there dressed in military uniforms saying, "I want to see your papers," and that kind of stuff. There was nothing like that, nothing at all. It was literally when I rode actually with a friend, when we crossed the border from the Netherlands into Deutschland, which is Germany, it was just like in the United States driving from one state to the other. If we left here and got on I-65 and went to Kentucky, that's exactly what it looked like when we got to Germany. There's no border walls. You're just driving on the highway.
Now, do you remember the first time that you attended Elvis Week?
Yes. The very first time that I attended Elvis Week, I don't know what year it was, but I'm pretty sure it was 2002. So would 2002 be 25 years or 30?
It'd be
I think it's 25. So 77, 87, 97, 2002 would be 25 years. So it was the 25th anniversary. And what I did was, at the time, I was working with Elvis's first guitar player, Scotty Moore. And Scotty, I was selling autographed items from Scotty, autographed pictures, books, personal items, posters, all that kind of stuff. And I went to Scotty, bought a lot of stuff autographed, and went to Elvis Week and stood. There used to be a Shoney's there. The Shoney's is gone now, which would be, there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken there now. It'd be to the left of the Kentucky Fried Chicken. There's a empty space. When the Shoney's was there, I sat up on the sidewalk, on the grass between the sidewalk and the street, while the people were going to Elvis Week, while they were going to the candlelight. And I sold everything that I had in 1 hour.
Wow.
Yeah, and I thought I took enough stuff for a whole week. I literally sold it all in 1 hour as people were walking by.
Oh, wow. Now, Huntston, during the one Elvis Week that you got your stuff stolen?
Well, I don't know if it was during Elvis Week. I think it was in September from my memory. But what happened was September 2018, and I may be wrong about that, but I think that's right. And I was actually in the graveyard where Elvis was first laid to rest, where the mausoleum is. And I was showing someone where Uncle Vester's grave in Aunt Cletus. And, when I'm doing stuff like that, I'm not thinking about thieves. I'm just thinking about what I was doing. Never crossed my mind that someone would get in my truck and steal my camera while I was at the graveyard. But what happened was I was parked, I was out there looking, and I saw a car pull up beside the Jeep. I was driving a Jeep Wrangler at the time, and I saw a car. I could still see them. I saw them pull up beside the Jeep, but they got out and acted like they were looking at graves on the other side. And it was probably somebody in the car acting like that. Another person in the car got in my vehicle and stole my camera out of my truck, out of my thing. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, have you met any people that was actually close to Elvis?
Yeah, a lot of people actually. A lot of good friends, and a lot of not so good friends. So an example would be I know Billy Stanley and David Stanley, which were Elvis's stepbrothers. A lot of people don't know that Elvis had stepbrothers, but he had three. One of them sadly has passed away, Ricky. But the way that happened was when Elvis's mother passed away in 1958, and Elvis was in Germany. Elvis's father, Vernon, went to Germany with him, and he met a lady named Dee Stanley, and him and Dee ended up getting married. And when they married, she had three sons, Billy, David, and Ricky Stanley. And they ended up living at Graceland starting in 1960, 61-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then they got a house. I think I'm going to say 1960, and I'm going from memory. But I'm sure that they got married and the boys moved in Graceland 60. They house over on Hermitage Street, and they lived there from about 61 to 64-ish when they built the house, and then they moved to the house over on Dolan. But I know Billy very well. I could call him right now on the phone. David, I know semi-well. I don't have David's number in my phone, but I know David. Sam Thompson, Linda's brother. I know Sam pretty well. I knew Dick Grove very well. Dick sadly has passed away. I knew Rex Mansfield and Elizabeth Mansfield, which Elizabeth was Elvis's girlfriend in Germany. Her and Rex was a friend of Elvis's in Germany. Was an army friend. They got married. Rex sadly has passed away, but I'm still friends with Elizabeth. I know Billy Smith, which was Elvis's first cousin. I know Ginger, not personally, we're not best friends or anything like that, but I've conversed with Ginger. I've had a lot of, and there's some really nice people out there. And a lot of, another one that just passed away, Dixie. I knew Dixie. I interviewed Dixie. Elvis's, they say she's Elvis's first girlfriend. That's maybe first steady girlfriend, maybe. I would go along with that, but Elvis had a lot of girlfriends. So I go along with that. June Wanico, Pat, her best friend. So I've had a lot of luck of knowing a lot of really cool people that were part of the story. Pat, which was Sonny. I mean, not Pat. Judy, which was Sonny's wife. Judy, or Pat, which is Red's wife. I've talked to Pat, so I've had a lot of luck with some really nice people in the story. Yeah.
Now, did you ever think that you would be in communication with these people?
I did not. There was a time when I can remember thinking that, wow, these people are just unreachable. I would never talk to those people. And it's kind of surreal to talk to someone that was literally there, because you got to think about this now. When I was 11 or 12 years old, I'm reading these books and these stories about these people. Now I'm standing there talking to this person. It really kind of blows my mind. It almost doesn't seem real. And what I mean is, I know that Billy Stanley was Elvis's stepbrother. I know he was there, but I never was there when it, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like it's not a real thing. I know it is,
Yeah.
you know, but it's just it's very surreal. That's the right word for it. When I'm lucky enough to know some of them, it's quite surreal. Now, I will say, and I'm not going to say any names, but there's some that I wish I'd have never met, you know, sadly, because it's kind of like one of those things, you know, they say that you never meet your hero because you'll be disappointed. You know what I'm saying? You just keep them at arm's length and they'll always be your hero. But if you ever meet them, they can never live up to what your expectations or, you know, how you thought that they would be. But I've had those experiences, but very minimally. You know, most of the people have been very nice and very gracious. And I was very, very lucky to know them. And one specifically that I would say is Dick Grove. Dick was the head of security, and the exterior of Dick was, he seemed to be a very gruff, unapproachable person. Is the way when you see photographs of him, he's the head of security. He's a military guy. You know what I'm saying? Scary. But once you get to know him, he was just a great guy. He was very nice to me. And he kind of made fun of the fact that he had that reputation. He thought it was funny that people thought he was unapproachable, you know, that kind of thing. I just thought I have fond memories of Dick Grove.